the students, we've been talking in all these movies from La Strada, everything we've done so far about La Madonna and about mask and face. There's every Fellini movie has a character with a mask and then his face, his reality, right? And usually they're confronted with it, like Zampano, is confronted with it on the beach when he realizes that she's dead, or Cabiria is confronted by it when she realizes that she's being taken advantage of. And I think it's interesting that they still, I mean, Cabiria gets a lot, but it's Fellini who gives and takes grace, right? Like he's like, yeah, it's not God, it's Fellini who gives and takes the grace. Like he was a real pissed off the church a lot, but I think it's interesting Marcello doesn't get grace, And I also
Yeah, I
wanted to
think
ask you, what do you think about the connection to other movies, that ending specifically, like Lost in Translation, for instance?
what's funny too is like, yeah, before like diving super into it, it's funny like watching it. I was like, this is probably a bad way to show up to an interview, but I was like, I have a lot of questions for you, actually, just kind of stuff that it made me think
Oh,
about,
totally.
to kind of dive into. And the funny thing is, so I watched your kind of 5 minute thing on it, which was cool, by the way. I thought it
Oh,
was very well done.
thank you.
But it did spurn a lot of like, so, and that put me in a mindset when I was watching it that actually made me fully pull out completely the opposite like aspects of it from like in terms of like a piece of art. Like I was really fascinated this watch, and like just on a lot of like this, honestly, just like more of the surface level stuff that I've never really considered before. Like I was like, there's so much to dive into, but like there's a lot of stuff that I was just kind of like, man, I think that a lot of this stuff is just like just how accurately it represents this like certain specific type of lifestyle. It's not really confined to like an age in your life. It gets really confined to like your priorities, or in Marcello's case, maybe your lack of priorities in
Yeah.
life, and like
Yeah.
the types of people you meet that are all when you're all sort of aimless and wandering. And like I also was really thinking about, so just kind of earmarking it for like later, but I also really wanted to know what you thought, because one thing that was really striking me is I was like, man, so like I can obviously feel, you can still feel it today, like how the depth, and you can feel the art, like the capital A art of it. But like what was really striking me is that I was like, I keep forgetting, I always forget that it was like a commercially successful movie that was like
It,
commercially
it, it's
successful like globally, and that
it's
part
still
baffles me.
it's still
Like,
the top. I believe this is true. It's the top grossing, continues to be number one top grossing Italian film to this day.
and
Like,
that,
to this
yeah,
day,
and
it's
that's
unbelievable.
crazy to me, because it's like
Yeah.
it's not even for like audiences of 1960 or audiences of 20. It's like the same reason if somebody was like, hey, the top grossing movie last year is a 3-hour movie about like, I mean, it's
How
like,
bleak life is and just
yeah,
hopelessly dark.
and it's very like, but it's in no way told in a way what would, like, it doesn't, like, none of the events in it are like classically exciting. And
No,
even in a
you're
lot of
right.
like, it's like
Even
hard,
the murders and the stuff is like kind of banal but real, like
it's,
harshly,
yes,
but like, oh,
like that
he's
whole, the whole like Steiner
yeah,
sequence at the
Steiner.
end is like, I mean, I think that's, and like that Roger Ebert essay I was talking about, like that
Mhm.
he talks a lot about Steiner. I think Steiner is like a very important, obviously, piece of the story. And like for me, it's like him and the waitress are the most important people in the story. And I'm
Yes,
like, they're both not in it very much at all. And they're
at
both,
all.
and they both get introduced like way far into the movie, like halfway into the movie, like post Trevi found, like all these things that you think of as
Yes.
like the meat of the movie are really like the introduction of the movie. So sorry, I realized I was like a bunch of
No, no, that's
ramble, but I wanted to
wonderful.
like
You're
uh
so right. What I think you're definitely onto, like, Pasolini helped write this, so he worked with some interesting people to get this like dark, gritty Rome right, and I think he did. But what he has in common with the neo-realists, who at this point he's totally gone on his own and doing something different, but he's still non-causal. It's just like one thing leads to another, and he leads to
mm,
another, and it's totally unpredictable. Like his encounters, all the women. I feel like I looked at it at a Jungian way, and the number seven gets brought up a lot. But also, I think I got myself caught up in that. The more I read, I think I missed the beauty of Fellini is not the number seven, or that he had some numerological, like, it's that he did this amazing woven dreamlike, like 8.5 definitely gets more into the dreamlike stuff, and it's like, but this just gave us it was
but
like the culmination of
I
everything he'd
think
done at that point.
I think it's like impossible to talk about this movie without talking about 8.5. Like they really, really are.
Yes.
Like one is the end of one era and one's the beginning of the other era. And what strikes me both so much about them is all the qualities you associate with one are actually much more prevalent in the other. Like La Dolce Vita is much more dreamlike and surreal as an experience, even though 8.5 is much more like art, like visually surreal and like more artistically bold in that sense. But every time I watch 8.5, I'm like blown away by how tight and controlled the story is. It actually is very literal. And like this movie,
you remember I was an 8.5 guy. You were the one who really sold me on the Dolce Vita. At first, I was like, oh, I liked it, but I mean, you sold me on its greatness.
It really I am pleased that I could sell you on it, because like I think 8.5 is sort of undeniable. If you like movies, you will like that movie. But like this movie, it's like a little bit, it's not impenetrable, but I remember like when I first really saw it when I was like I think I was like 19. I think Mr. Cortez showed it to me.
The only other film class that I've ever taken, apart from the French film class I took with Professor Bongiorni, he's writing a book on the Dolce Vita, so he'll be seeing this video, and he really thought Bergman Beach was a cool, really great band and cool idea for. I just got the Wong Kar-wai collection as well, so
that'll be your next. I was gonna say that should be a series. Like I could definitely talk about that forever. But like it was really nice to come back to a Dolce Vita and like just like I haven't thought about it in a long time. And I think that to me, the beauty of La Dolce Vita, and the thing I was like stunned by too, especially with like four writers and especially with, and it's like I know it's the last of the neorealist Fellini stuff, but it's like
I actually don't think I would argue not, but I think that's interesting. I'll ask you that in a second. But go ahead.
Yeah, I definitely would be down to talk about that too. But like, it's kind of like I know it's like associated with that, and it's like, and thinking about it when I'm not watching it, even 20 minutes out from finishing it, I'm like, oh, I think of it as like hard realism. But while I was watching it, it is very dreamy, and the fact that it's so, but it is also really the story and the writing is pretty controlled again. Like it's not very abstract at all.
And which is crazy because he sometimes wouldn't even have dialogue written at the time. He would tell people to count. He would just be like, uno, due, tre, and then I'll come up with dialogue later. So this was all dubbed at the time anyway. It's just amazing that I bought his Book of Dreams, which was like pretty penny, but well worth it. I mean, it's just his sketches when he was doing psychoanalysis, and you'll recognize so much that goes into his movies. And the La Dolce Vita definitely, he would look for faces, and this is what he was doing, the roving camera and then breaking that fourth wall, looking right into the camera. La Dolce Vita starts to do that in ways that I think are really controlled. Controlled is such a great word for it. I mean, it's everything from like the Trevi fountain, which I think is beautiful. Mastroianni died. They put black streaming velvet all over Trevi. That's so beautiful. But 8.5, I think the stakes are way lower, and in La Dolce Vita, we're dealing with super high stakes. So that's why I mean, like, it's realistic, but would we call it neo-realism? Like people have been talking about that with the Nora and Sean Baker movies, or if you've seen that movie, The Last Showgirl, there's kind of like a return to neorealism that some cinephiles are hearkening, but I don't see the La Dolce Vita as fitting into that. Hey, but that's just me.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I hadn't quite thought about it. I mean, I think it is like, I don't know. I think it's like the realism part of it is just very like it's plausible, right? It's plausible. And again, like I said, it struck me like very hard as like, because like one question I had too is I was like, how old is Marcello supposed to be? I always interpreted him as a little bit younger of a man, but this watch, and like that maybe Marcello Mastroianni, the actor, was like a little bit older playing down, but this watch, I kind of was like, I sort of feel like he's supposed to be like around like our age. Like he's supposed to be
you're
late 30s, early 40s. Like he is fully like,
I thought the same thing.
Prime, but he's fully like lived life. He is not in any way naive, and like his like and this thing of just like he's sort of doing what ostensibly he should be doing, and like he's sort of and like that thing where it's like you can't really tell, like, does he enjoy his life? Like
it's tough.
It's hard.
Why does he keep this girl around? Like why does he put her through it if he's gonna treat her so badly and drop her off, but then he comes back to pick her up? Like, You know, why keep her around if you're just going to be like Celebrity, which I know, Woody Allen's verboten, but I recently we rewatched that and The Great Beauty, which I feel like The Great Beauty is a great double feature with this film and a good palate cleanser for the soul. Like it's heartbreaking in a different way,
But it
but
is,
there's
I agree with you. I think I didn't really appreciate The Great Beauty the first time I watched it because I thought it was just a knockoff. But like, I
it's so
like
simple.
it's so similar. But I really think, especially that component where it's like you don't leave with this taste in your mouth of like La Dolce Vita really is just like the title of it really is just almost like it's almost like a middle finger, right? Like it's very much like it's very sarcastic and cynical, and you think about like Rome in 1960, you know what I mean? This is like really not that long after World War II, and like not that long after Mussolini, and like
the movie before this was Knights of Cabiria. Like that's a totally different Italy. You know, you've got people killing each other, killing prostitutes for their life savings and stuff. Like, I mean, they didn't have to, but it still shows a level of desperation that, like, the bicycle thieves had at the end of fascism. It was definitely at its peak. But you know, Rome is in the Dolce Vita. It's like the Marshall Plan is in full effect. The money is coming into Italy. Like
money is coming into Italy. Yes, and like Marcello, I think the interesting thing about like La Dolce Vita and Marcello is that he's a guy, because this really struck me in that like ending party scene where I was like, oh, this is the first time.
It would have been an orgy if he could have gotten away with it. It would have been.
First of all, I had forgotten, again, well, I'm really glad I got to do the rewatch. Like I had forgotten just how repugnant he is in that scene. Like he is fully like he waves goodbye to the angel. I see her like the waitress is like an angel trying to save his soul. I think that's a pretty common interpretation. He rejects that, and I was like, that's him rejecting it. But I was like, no, when that party starts, he's already lost. He's already a lost soul. Like he's and like that really struck me. And also though, that I was like, this is the first time I think we're seeing Marcello with people that might actually be his friends, whereas like in the rest of the movie, he's kind of like a working guy. He's like a working stiff compared to all these like people that he's with. He's like he's an interesting curiosity to them, but they're all like the upper class. Like Anita Ekberg is, I mean, she's a movie star, right? Like she's you know, like world famous, you know. All like the people in the castle, they're like, you know, like old aristocratic style wealth. And yeah, so I really found that was interesting, where it's kind of like, it's not even that they're younger, it's just the people in the last party. It's like, oh, these are the kind of people that he would actually know and be exposed to naturally. Like his job is what put him in the realm of like the high society, you know, part of Rome earlier.
You know what movie it made me? Did make you think? You remember that movie, The Color of Money, with Burt Lancaster, Tony Curtis? The Color of Money. It was like a neo noir, great movie. Another like Burt Lancaster basically plays like a William Randolph Hearst. It's a much grittier noir, but it's also, I mean, The Color of Money, and or like in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, you know, the color. Like it doesn't overtly say, you know, it's not a Marxist movie, but Pier Paolo Pasolini, who, by the way, got an extra sallow if you want it.
I'm good, dude. That's like a one-time viewing for me. I was like, I did my like film fan diligence when I was like 22. I was like, all right, I'm gonna just like buckle up and do it, and I did it, and I'm like, all right, I'm done.
I also like wouldn't say I like throw it on for a good time. I've probably seen it like 5 times, which is a lot for that movie.
It's a lot for that movie. I agree.
I had to write a paper, and you know, I'm glad that I watched it, but because I caught a lot of things that the first time I was just too horrified to catch. But I think the reason I mentioned him is he worked on Knights of Cabiria, but I feel like he was a Marxist that was basically a Catholic, and Fellini was basically a true Catholic with social consciousness. You know, all of his movies also have prostitutes and marginalized people in them, like Cabiria or circus people, or you know, just different kinds of marginalized people, the flim flam men and Il Bidone, scammers, you know. And now people are saying that's an influence on movies like Trainspotting or Wolf of Wall Street, and I could totally see that. But that was a bomb in the box office, so it's wild that which is more like an American movie bombed, and the Dolce Vita, which was, you know, really risky, ended up just conquering the world, like Martin Scorsese said.
And I mean, and conquering the world, like that's the thing. That's the thing I couldn't get over while I was watching it this time. So I was like, man, and it's not like, oh, for instance, something like Salo. That's not what I'm thinking in terms of like, oh, how did this like explode like this? Like, that's a movie that I'm like, that's actively challenging and abrasive to like kind of quote normal viewers. But with Dolce Vita, again, I'm kind of like, just it's weird. It's 3 hours. I feel like that would be a tough sell. And like, but like, it is also like the Rome of 1960 is very worldly, very world city. I've no like I used to be like, oh, he just was kind of doing an artistic. I'm not going to worry about people speaking English here and not that. But I was kind of like, no, this time, like when I was watching it, a lot of little things came out. Like there's like a big shot where you see like an Air India sign and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, this is like Rome is like a cosmopolitan center of the world. It's
Yeah.
a world city right now.
One thing my professor mentions, and apparently there's a whole either thesis or essay written about the Esso, which is like Exxon Mobil. It was the Esso sign. A whole essay has been written on the Esso sign in Italian films, because you see it in a bunch of Fellini, a bunch of Rossellini. I just saw Mamma Roma today by Pasolini, so I'm kind of like comparing the early films of the two. But that's what I wanted to ask you about, because we got just coming in on 10 minutes. We got a good amount of time, but what do you think about that religious aspect? That aspect of, I mean, we start with La Madonna, which has been so important in his other movies, and it's Rome, where he definitely seems to be making a parallel between the spectacle of the church and the spectacle of the the showbiz life.
Yeah, I think that that's like pretty. I think that's pretty clear. What I found more interesting, like the religion, like what I found more interesting about the religious component of it was that it was kind of like, yeah, all that stuff was sort of a show. I found the movies, particularly on this viewing, to be like extremely secular, except in the most important way, where like the battle really is for Marcello's soul. And
That's
it's kind
right.
of like a movie that's like, I would even maybe use the term agnostic, in the sense of like, it's not really about, is he going to go to a heaven that you believe in or don't, but it's
Yes.
like it forces the question of like, is there like an objective morality?
Yes.
And it also, I think, is like, yes, because through Marcello, it makes you, the viewer, be like, this is a tragedy. Like he could, it's, you know what I mean? He's not a great dude. He's not a bad dude either. He probably should break up with his fiance. Like, and he probably could like be a little bit, but he clearly has friends. He clearly, and he's not unaware, but like this thing of like, he's teeter-tottering on the edge. I think that's his whole existence, is teeter-tottering on the edge. I think he's seduced by the pure, like, what's the word, like the titillating nature of that celebrity life and those celebrity circles, and like obviously like sex and money and just like, and booze, and like just that thing too, where like, again, the thing that struck me so much is like all of these, like, it's like always dawn, like he always parties until dawn, like it definitely he can't stop himself, he's just like, he wants the party. And like, I think that struggle with temptation is present through the entire thing. It's the push and pull of his entire existence. And, he has certain linchpins. I think I'm not the only person who views the waitress as an angel. I think he views her as that, like, hero representation.
Totally right. It's not in a secular way. Like, I don't think anyone's thinking about it as like an objective. I don't think Fellini was thinking about it in terms of objective, like, theology. But again, he's the one who's calling the shots salvation wise. Fellini's the God as far as the viewer is concerned. And Marcello, you're right, he waves it off. He waves off that salvation.
He falls, but
I know you like Lost in Translation, and
I do, for sure. Yeah.
You know that scene where the Dolce Vita is playing on the television?
Oh yeah.
You know that was a complete chance, apparently.
Really?
That was totally chance, which is crazy.
But I'm sure that Sofia Coppola and whoever was working on that movie took it as like a sign of like, oh yeah, divine providence of some kind.
There,
right?
I feel like it's a very similar ending, but we don't get to hear, but they get to hear. So
Yeah,
presumably,
like
it looks like with their expressions, it looks like we do get that salvation and connection because it's so much inability to communicate, right? Like with his wife, with any of these guys, even in English, he's trying to, when he's talking in Italian with someone who doesn't understand him, telling her he wants to, his mother, his sister, his lover. He kind of like lets go, and I think it's that the fact that she can't understand him, that he's honest with her and says some things that, like, let's admit it, we wouldn't lay that on a girl on the first date.
but I mean, I think that like Scarlett Johansson in Lost in Translation is more akin to the waitress that Marcello meets. Like, I think that it is like, and I think you're like, yeah, as a comparison point, I would agree. I think that you do get that salvation. Marcello does not get that salvation. But the thing with Fellini that he does that like really forces it to you is that it's kind of like, I think that he pushes the idea that like Marcello chooses to essentially damn himself. But what is the thing that makes that happen? He's kind of on the line the whole time because he sort of has this other thing, this other North Star of Steiner. Steiner represents and this isn't my insight. I think it's a pretty classic insight about this movie, but Steiner represents everything that Marcello feels that he should be. It's kind of the same way like a lot of like artist people are like, I should have gotten I should have been an accountant, I should have done these things, and they have those friends they grew up with and they go to their house in the suburbs and it's like it's so nice and they're doing everything right, and it shines a light on, not it's not even about everything you're doing wrong, but it shines a light very much on like, I could do that if I just put the right effort into it, like if I just focus, I could be Steiner. And then it's horrible. I forgot the fact that Steiner kills his children too, and like,
but yeah, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't drop the F-bomb, but yeah, it's absolutely horrible. And I mean, I remember that he killed his wife, but I forgot the kids too. And that is really, I mean, dark. I forget who it was that, but it was someone who'd worked with Fellini on every film up to this point, producer, I think. And they said, I don't know if I can work on a movie that doesn't have so much as a shred of hope. But I think there is hope, and there is an angel, and I mean, salvation exists in this universe, even if it's through Fellini, and us as the viewers.
And I agree that there is hope, and the thing is that there is salvation, just not for Marcello. And like, that's the thing, is that like Marcello is, he is our he is what tells us he's basic. And again, in that context, it's like, I think the movie is maybe less religious, although it's like Fellini's pretty Catholic, I believe, but but I think spiritual maybe. Like, and again, it's like it does in a secular world. It paints such a secular world, and it forces this idea, and like the thing you were talking about earlier with a lot of this like realism stuff, like the banality of it, there's not really and he forces it to be like, no, but there is morality, and it's like, again, it's like lowering the stakes. It's like, I mean, yes, Steiner, that's pretty intense, but generally speaking, like what is the fallout from like Marcello just like has like a wasteland of failed relationships behind him, not just romantic, I was really fascinated this time, for instance, by his friendship with Paparazzo. I was like, are they friends? Are they coworkers? Like, what is it? Sort of seems like they just hang out and sometimes
if it wasn't for their job, would they even do that? Like, it's a paparazzi movie. We're the paparazzi, or we're asked to be, in a way, be the paparazzi of the movie. And it's great that the paparazzi comes from that film. I mean, the term La Dolce Vita, paparazzi, so many things that people don't realize come from Fellini. And like Toby Dammit, Johnny Rotten got a lot of his look and vibe of punk rock from Fellini. Toby Dammit, and I didn't know about that.